Today I'm going to share with you a new unique way to make the steak through a technique called reverse sear. And with you, we'll also share how to make my favorite sauce that goes with steak, and it's a port wine sauce. Simple, the steps are 1, 2, 3, and it tastes fantastic. Let me show you how to make it. The oil's already in the pan, it's getting hot, so the first thing that we're gonna add is the mirepoix. It's equal parts of chopped onion, carrots, and celery. In Italian, we call it soffritto. You'll find this basic beginning for the making of a sauce or for the making of a stock. What I'm about to do next is unusual. I found that chopped bacon, once added to it, starts and gives to the whole sauce a presence which is splendid. The bacon, especially in sauces like this, when added earlier on, opens up, it blooms the flavor of the sauce. The next thing that we're going to do is going to surprise you. This is brown sugar, a half of a teaspoon. We're gonna add it to the sauce, and you say, sugar to a sauce? Why? Why? Bacon, salty, brown sugar. Who's ever heard of brown sugar in a sauce? I discovered this by accident, but the brown sugar is very important because it's loaded with molasses. And it creates an effect of yin and yang, the beauty of opposites, salt and sweet. How many of you in the past have had chocolate with sea salt on top of it? And what a wonderful flavor that is. And I thought to myself, why can't we apply some of those principles in the making of the sauce? And that is the flavor that we're chasing. So there's enough salt in here already from what we had done with the bacon. We put a bit of sugar, but let's continue this. And now we go with tomato paste. I learned this in the old days when I was making my own veal stock and demi-glace, and still I find that to be an addition that to any sauces opens up another layer of flavor. Tomato paste is very important because now it's going to attach itself in a certain way, glaze with a tomatoey finish, all the ingredients we already have in the pan. And as it reduces, it creates this wonderful crust which will open up additional flavors as the sauce slowly but surely reduces to its perfect rendition. It takes it closer to my Mediterranean beginnings at the same time. Watch this. What's coming up next is spectacular. This is thyme, fresh thyme. Fresh thyme is a perfect combo to this. If you don't have it, you can use dry thyme. Don't worry about it, because in the process of finishing this sauce, once it's done, we'll strain it. So if it's dry thyme and you're concerned that it might be difficult to chew on and all that, in the end, it will not be part of the sauce because we'll make this very, very fancy. And now we go with the star of the show, port wine. And by the way, when you make this for yourself at home, you don't need to use very expensive aged port. Regular port, the less expensive one, is fantastic for this sauce because it's able to pick up all the flavors from all the other ingredients that we give into it. Now, additional liquid that I like at this point is beef stock. Beef stock because we're gonna use this for the steak. And then for another reach of deepness, I like to put some tomato sauce as well. You can use my recipe for fresh tomato sauce, yours. You can just buy it at the store. It will do a fantastic job. Now, the color that you see, this deep red, dark color that's in the sauce, is going to deepen even more. All the elements that I put in, think of them as colored pencils that are putting together a painting. You don't know this yet, but you are about to become a culinary painter. Once we get to this point that all the ingredients are combined, we're gonna raise up the heat just a little bit. We're gonna bring this to a boil. The sauce is starting to boil, so we're going to put this on the side of the stove. And while this is finished cooking, I wanna show you how to make the steak. I can't wait to share with you what I've learned in the making of a reverse sear steak. Before we get started, we have the oven already preheated at 195 degrees. The steak first is placed in the oven to cook at a very low heat. During that time, something magical happens. Right here, as you can see, there are enormous amount of striation of the fat. This is a prime cut of steak. This fat will slowly melt, and as it does, it will break down the texture of the steak so that when we sear it, the steak will be ultra tender and ultra juicy. First thing we're going to do, we're going to brush the steak on both sides with a little bit of olive oil, all the way around, the front and the back. And here we are with it. And then we're going to flavor it. And this is my secret. I call this Stellino magic rub. The recipe is very simple. 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of pepper, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, and 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. Why? I'm Sicilian, I need to have garlic. We're shaking it real well, and now we're gonna cook the steak with it. Now, what I love about this is the presence of the brown sugar. It will crust up the outside of the steak, bringing in these wonderful flavors. On the other side as well, but also is going to help the blooming of the flavors to a whole different level. That's all that you need to do to flavor the steak. Now, let's put the steak into the oven at 195 degrees for 45 minutes. Ah, what a beauty. We have taken this baby right out of the oven. It's warm, but at the same time, it's not cooked all the way through. Some of the interior fat has broken down, has moistened the steak, already given an enormous amount of flavor. You notice how it's darkened up somewhat on top. On the sides, it's because of the low heat that we have had. So the steak already has gotten its pre-sear. It's reverse seared in a certain way. The next thing we're gonna do, we're going to sear the steak and cook it all the way through. Oil in the pan is super hot. Now, let me show you to cook this baby just right. Our goal is to give it a nice crust on all sides. We want to maintain the meat on the inside tender, juicy. But why is the flavor so much better on a reverse sear than it is when you simply cook it or grill it on the barbecue? The beautiful part is the combination of these two different type of heats which affect the texture of the meat in a completely different way. Let's turn, let's see what she looks like. Now, you can see why it is that I love using this. What is there already that you can see is what the brown sugar has done. It's given this wonderful color. But the best part about this also is that you don't want to cook the steak on high heat. I usually go for something like this that I want to take into medium rare, between 4 to 5 minutes per side. That's all that you need. We're almost there with the steak. The last step that I like to do is for a few minutes at the end, I like to arrosé the steak. What is the arrosé? It's the adding of the butter to the steak. The butter, as it cooks into the oil, allows us to bathe the steak with all this beautiful glossiness that the butter brings to this game. It penetrates inside the steak into the texture of the meat, giving the meat this beautiful, beautiful finish. Well, the sauce is basically done. The steak is basically finished. All that we need to do at this point, we need to take it out, we need to let it rest. And while the steak is resting, let me show you how to make one of my favorite side dishes. Mushrooms with arugula. These mushrooms, I recently found them on my supermarket. I actually never seen them before. They're called beech, B-E-E-C-H mushrooms. And they are so cute. Look at them. The oil is super hot. The mushrooms are gonna cook quickly. The juices inside the mushroom is really what we're after. And as the mushrooms are cooking, we wanna give it some very basic flavoring. We go with a little bit of pepper. Always a little bit of salt. Now, you can do this with any kind of mushrooms you like. The technique remains the same. These guys, I've chosen them just because they're unique. A little bit of chives right on top. The chives I'm using in substitution of the onion. Why do I like them so much? I love chives because they bring out the aroma of onion, but in a very elegant fashion. I would consider this almost like the couture herb. Next, we're going to add my secret, a few shakes of the Stellino's magic rub. Of course, you know the recipe for this. Brown sugar, salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika. My magic combination. It changes the color a little bit. Look at that, look at that, look at that. And mind you, it was just a light dusting. This is like a dusting of magic that we're putting in it. The flavors that are in there. A little bit of chopped garlic. Not too much, just enough to give it the Sicilian presence. And the last thing that you want to do is to add the arugula. Now, when you add the arugula, I want you to lower the heat And that is the key, because all that we want to do at this point, the arugula is full of water. This is baby arugula, by the way. If you want something even more elegant, more formal than this, instead of putting it whole, you can chop the arugula, but I kind of like to see it in this form. The mushrooms are just about ready. I like to turn off the heat at this point, and just a touch of butter. Look at this. I love looking at the mushroom cooking right before we're ready to pull them out. And the truth is that the reason why I love these mushrooms is because they remind me of the mushrooms that my father and I used to go hunting for in the forest in Palermo in the old days when I was living in Sicily. Now, they were not beach mushrooms, they were larger than these, but it's the shape, the look, and maybe it's the feel as well. Or maybe it's my memory was playing tricks on me. I don't know. Our steak is ready. The sauce, I still need to finish up. Let me put this aside. And let me show you exactly how to finish the sauce and how to plate this astonishing dish. I'm gonna set up a bowl with a strainer because I want to strain the sauce of all the ingredients that it has in there. So here we go. Once the sauce is in the strainer, attentively, gently, make sure that all of it strains through. Now, what I'm going to do, I wanna show you how to degrease the sauce. This is the instrument, you want to pay attention to it. This is unique. As you can see, the beak of this particular instrument starts at the very bottom. The reason why it's so low is because most of the fat, as we let it rest for a few moments, will come from the top. And then we'll be able to pour it and come out so that the fat will get trapped at the bottom. Not all of it, but pretty close to 80%. Now, I want to show you exactly what I mean because you need to see it. As we stay here, this is the most important part. You see how dark the color is here? Already some of the fat has come to the top. What I propose before you finish this is that you let it rest for about 4 or 5 minutes and most of the fat will come to the top. Then we'll put it in a smaller pan. I'm going to put some heat on it and we're going to let this reduce by, I would say, another half. At this point, we turn off the heat. This is the part I love the most. You look over the stove and everything is absolutely perfect. The sauce is ready to go. The steak has rested. It's ready to be served. These mushrooms, they look beautiful. All we need to do is plate them. Let me show you how to do it. The mushroom on one side of the plate, and they're so full of flavor, so crispy, and so cute. And this is how magic happens in my kitchen. Mamma mia, che bellezza. One of the most beautiful shots when you plate the steak, sport sauce is beautiful, viscous, deep, full of flavor. You can see it from the color how gorgeous she is. Many ways to go at it. You can put the sauce on top if you want to, but if I was you, I'd just place it on the side. And always serve some extra sauce on the side because it's too good. And this is how you make reverse sear steak with pan-fried mushrooms, arugula, and a delicious port wine sauce.